Well, the UN's Children Agency has called for an extra €85 million to help fight the COVID-19 pandemic in the Middle East and North Africa. Well, UNICEF says conflicts and wars have led to the highest number of children in need of assistance in the world. It says nearly 25 million children are suffering, including many who are refugees and internally displaced. UNICEF estimates the devastating effects of lockdowns on businesses will drag around 8 million more people into poverty. Well, for more on the situation in the region, I'm joined by Juliette Touma, the Regional Chief of Communication for UNICEF in the Middle East and North Africa. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us on Euronews tonight. Well, we know that children are more immune to COVID-19, but that doesn't mean that they're not very vulnerable when it comes to this pandemic. So what are your greatest concerns?
Yeah, thank you very much. Our greatest concerns are for children in places like Syria, like Yemen, like Libya, where conflict meant that these children's lives anyway were unbearable. And now this virus comes and makes it a double burden. So this is our biggest concern. And this is where we actually intensified our humanitarian assistance, hence the appeal that we issued this morning.
OK, so if you're intensifying your humanitarian assistance, but we are dealing with countries that are some countries which are under lockdown, borders that have gone up, transportation systems that have been broken because of the pandemic. How is that affecting your work?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, here in the Middle East, borders have been closed, airspaces as well. But despite all of that, we managed to get in supplies, especially for the frontline workers, so PPE, what we call, which is protective personal equipment, to millions of doctors and nurses around the region. We mainly helped buy those from local markets. So that's also something that we've worked on to support local economy, which is actually going down massively in the region. I mean, the predictions are that poverty is going to increase in 2020 by at least 8 million additional people due to the loss of jobs.
But broken health systems, refugee camps, the conditions in those refugee camps are exacerbated by conflict and war. Now, we saw that the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called for a global ceasefire. Are you seeing any signs of that taking place on the ground?
Yeah, we have seen a very good lull in violence in places like northwest Syria, where, if you recall, at the beginning of the year, it was a total bloodbath. And so that is very, very welcome in the sense that we're seeing, obviously, a decrease in the number of children killed. Unfortunately, we're not seeing the same happening in places like Yemen, where it has been 5 years of brutal war, where children paid the heaviest price. And we're, in fact, seeing an escalation in places like Libya. And so it is time that the guns go silent for the sake of children. I mean, this virus doesn't know any borders, doesn't know race, doesn't know which political side you're sitting on. And so it is high time that violence comes to an end. And we do hope that this ceasefire that we called for translates into a total end to these brutal wars on children in this region.
OK, well, thanks so much for joining us on the programme. Juliette Touma there from UNICEF. Now, in the middle of